Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I see there's still some more people trickling in, but just want to welcome everybody to the second SAVA workshop in the series. Today, we're going to be going through Standards 5 and Standard 7. Standard 5, of course, as you see on the screen here, is foodborne illness and food defense preparedness and response. And standard 7 is industry and community relations. And so we have Kenya Moon here, our FDA retail specialist, who is going to educate all of us on standards 5 and standard 7. So happy New Year to everybody and welcome Kenya to today's session.
Thanks, Whitney, and good morning and Happy New Year, all. I'll go off camera in just a second to save my bandwidth here. But welcome again, as Whitney said. If you all still have the guide, he mentioned earlier that we used in the last workshop, kind of mini workshop, we're going to use that today also. So please have that handy. And if not, let us know by putting a message in the chat or unmuting, and we can email that to you, because I don't think I was going to try to attach it, but I don't think there's a way for me to attach anything or send anything through WebEx from what I can tell. So I'm gonna go off camera now, but welcome. And just so I can know who is on the line, I see names, but can y'all put in chat like your county or health district so I can see who all's represented today, if you don't mind, please. And hopefully everybody had good holidays. I'm still getting into the swing of things. I don't know about y'all, but it's like the holidays came and went so fast. Had fun and it was relaxing. Good times with family, but still it went by so quick to me. Okay, cool. So we got a good representation throughout the state here. That's good. Good. Well, I'll jump right in, and y'all know me, this is informal. I want you to get I want to get the questions that you have anxiously awaiting to know what the answers are through this session. So if something comes up, feel free to raise your hand, unmute, we can talk about it. And then also you can put questions in the chat. I'm going to go through a few slides similar to last time, and then towards the end of the presentation, we're going to do those questions that are in the workbook. And these first few workshops have basically straightforward questions. As we get into like standard 2, some of standard 9, there's actually more application type stuff where I'll give you a scenario, and then you'll kind of work through how you would do that if you were doing your self-assessment, or what it would look like if you were doing a verification audit as well. So it's going to get a little more complicated. Right now, the questions seem kind of straightforward. So it's kind of easing you into the what's to come, but it's going to be all good and we're going to have fun with it. So we'll jump right into standard 5. So by show of hands, I think there's like a reaction button down there. Y'all can do like a little thumbs up. How many on the line have actually had a foodborne illness outbreak that you had to work in your district or your county? You can use the thumbs up reaction just so I can kind of tell. Has anybody had one that you had to actually work? Okay, I'm seeing one. Courtney's with what? Fairfax. So I see a couple more. All right, so a few of you have. So hopefully, and my next question is, would you know what to do? So I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if you've had to assist in an outbreak, or if you had to work an outbreak, were you comfortable in knowing what to do or what your role was in that outbreak? Anybody want to share? Or y'all are quiet this morning. That's okay. So I'll keep going. So basically, standard 5 is here to help you know kind of what to do if you were to encounter that situation. If you were to have a confirmed foodborne illness outbreak in your jurisdiction, what would you do? How would you handle that? It seems like to some, it's like, oh my gosh, if somebody gets sick and we have this tremendous outbreak, what would I do? Like I remember when I was with local health, one of the largest ones that I had to work, we had like over 100 and something people had gotten sick with norovirus from a catered wedding at one of our large venues. And it seemed overwhelming, like, what do you do? But thankfully, we had policies in place. But think about if that was to happen in your jurisdiction, would you know where to go, what to do, how to handle it? So standard 5 is going to help you with that. let's jump right in. Okay, hold on. Let me know if you don't see slides advancing, okay? If not, let me know.
Yes, we see them. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. All right. So if you were to go sit down, say you want to work on standard 5 and you want to do a self-assessment on standard 5. So what do you need? Well, obviously we recommend having a copy of the standard so you'll know what things you need to look for. What are the required elements of the standard? We'll get into more of that later. Clearinghouse, that clearinghouse interpretation I mentioned last week, and I'll put a link in the chat that all things that you need to know about the standards can be found on our website. There are plenty of copies, digital copies. You can print out copies, all of that. Oh, I can't even post links. I don't think y'all post. Yeah, it won't let me post links. So if you go to www, let me just type it in, fda.gov/retail food protection. You will see on there, if you look on the left side of your screen, there will be a section for program standards. You can go there and you can get all the information you will need for standard 5 or any of the other standards. In that section, you will also see there's self-assessment verification audit forms and worksheets. I don't think this one has worksheets, but we'll go to the next slide in a second. You want any manuals that you have on procedures, and we'll get to those in a minute. Any MOUs, memorandums of understandings, if there are certain things that you cannot basically carry out, like if you don't have a lab in your county. Well, if you had an illness, foodborne illness outbreak, and you collected samples, where would you send those? So you want any MOUs or correct, thanks Whitney for putting it in there, or anything like that that you have in place. You want to have that available and ready when you're actually going through and actually doing your self-assessment or verification audit too. They would have to present those to you for this standard. You want to look at foodborne illness complaint logs. Do you have logs? You know, we get complaints oftentimes, a lot of complaints. Some of them turn into illnesses, some don't. Some are just general complaints. So you want to ensure that you have complaint logs to review when you're doing your self-assessment. And any guidance for collecting, you know, specimens or lab or dead man's plates or food samples, anything like that, you want to get all of the guidance documents that you have. And as I'm saying these things, if you don't have them, think about, okay, I may need to start developing these things or seeing how I can get these in place. Other documents that would help: source lists, let's say contact lists. I mentioned laboratories earlier. That would be a good thing to have. Traceback procedures. I don't know if you know, those of you, I think there was a couple jurisdictions said you have worked outbreaks. Do you have procedures to do traceback on the food product that you think is potentially, you know, how did you come to the forefront of thinking this food is the suspect? So traceback guidance and procedures would be good to have. And then the recall procedures, we'll talk about that a little bit later too. More protocols for developing, and how do you get information to the media or the public? How would you get information out? You want to have procedures on that. And then we'll talk about later also about a trend analysis, basically taking a look at what you have, what procedures you have in place, and seeing what needs to be worked, what may need to be addressed, what may need to be updated. We'll talk about data analysis and trends too towards the end. Let me see. All right, so that's the picture of the website. And once again, thanks, Whitney has put that in chat for us. So you should have that direct link to those program standards. And you'll notice with this one, there is not a worksheet. Some of the standards, we have worksheets that you can fill out and basically help with your self-assessment and verification audits. This one basically just has the form. So the self-assessment audit and verification audit form. That's the only one that is there from standard 5. So it makes it a little bit easier, somewhat. So let's jump right in. So what is, once again, standard 5 going to help you do? Basically, standard 5 is going to make sure that your program has what you need: a system in order to detect, to collect, or investigate, or respond to those complaints that you get, and then any emergencies that involve foodborne illness, injury, intentional contamination, unintentional contamination. All of that is what Standard 5 will help you do, respond to these complaints and illness. So there are 7 core criteria for Standard 5. And you'll see on the screen the 7 bullets: your investigative procedures, reporting procedures, lab support documentation, traceback procedures, recalls, how do you manage the media, and data review and analysis. So these are the 7 main core criteria that Standard 5 is going to help you develop if you don't have. If you have all of these, you meet it, you'll meet Standard 5. So we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about some of these through the next few slides, and then we'll get to some of those Q&A questions at the end. And I'm still trying to monitor chat, make sure I don't have any questions, and so far so good. All right. How many are familiar with NEARS or have heard of NEARS, which is the National Environmental Assessment Reporting System? Anybody on the line? Y'all can thumbs up, raise your hand, you put in chat. I see some thumbs up. All right, so yeah, a lot of y'all have heard of NEARS. I was gonna say good, because there's actually a couple of you that are, well, the state of Virginia is enrolled in NEARS. If you did not know, you are one of those NEARS participants. You'll see on the map there, Virginia is in green, so that means Virginia is a member or participant in NEARS. And then there's a couple of counties and districts. I believe Fairfax is also county level NEARS participant, and then Central Virginia as well. When I checked this a couple months ago, that was the latest updates for NEARS. So basically, this is it's voluntary participation. It's basically NEARS is designed to provide basically help you with the foodborne illness outbreak investigations and responses. That's what it's there for. There's a lot of sources, documentation. There's a lot of calls with CDC. Like if you do have an outbreak, CDC will help coordinate that for you. So that's kind of what NEARS is. And I will put a link here to NEARS. I think I can put links in the chat now. For those of you that are not members and that you want to find more information on it, you can go take a look at that website. But this is kind of a good tool or a good system for you to have in your back pocket, and there's a lot of information on there. You can go check it out. If you have outbreak and you want to talk to a neighboring state or neighboring jurisdiction, you can find out who's enrolled surrounding you, and you can contact them or things like that. So NEARS is kind of networking for outbreaks. I kind of like to think of it.
Hey,
and
Kenya.
reporting purposes. Hey, yes, Whitney.
I will just plug and add in, here that we recently set up a new VEERS for Virginia. It's the Virginia Environmental Assessment Red Cap Survey that all of our local health departments will be able to enter their own environmental assessments into, that will then
Nice.
go to us at our central office and will get uploaded into NEARS. So everybody here will have access to their own environmental assessments now for that last piece of the data review and analysis. So that's a new tool that we rolled out very recently that will allow local health departments to, kind of communicate within their own agencies between EH and EPI when they're doing investigations to start those environmental assessments at the local level.
Good. That's good. That's awesome. That's good to hear. So you'll have that support within the state too. That's good. That's even better. Thanks, Whitney, for putting that plug out there. Yeah, I like all the new ingenuity type things that folks try to do, because it's very important with these outbreaks. And then Whitney alluded to, I don't know if he knew he was going where I was going. He said the term environmental assessment is very important in these outbreaks, that you guys know that there is a difference between conducting an environmental assessment in response to an outbreak and doing a routine inspection. I remember back in the day when I started, they were like, okay, you had an outbreak, you had a complaint, we went out, we did a routine inspection. Well, that's not really telling us much. So an environmental assessment is more in depth, or it's more of a focused inspection. It's not just you going and doing your routine inspection. So that was something I had on my notes here when we're talking about these NEARS and going back and doing your outbreak investigations. So just pinpoint it and make sure that you know that there is a difference between an environmental assessment and a food routine inspection. They are not the same. All right, any questions so far? Or are y'all with me still? So far, so good. All right, another available resource is C4, and you see there's a toolkit available. Their website is there. Basically, this is some more resources to help you develop. Like I say, you have your internal resources, but if you need to help with those protocols, those procedures, if you want to know, what guidelines, this will help you kind of tailor. You can take what you need out of this toolkit and help you develop your procedures and protocol within your jurisdiction also. So that's another resource you have to help you get ready for Standard 5. So this is the form. This is found on our website. This is the self-assessment verification audit form. And if you all were with us on our first workshop or our last one we had, I explained this. Basically, what you would do is you take the criteria, is going to be on the left side of the screen. The element, what you need to do to meet that criteria, is the next column. And then you would go through each of these criteria and elements, determine whether you meet them or whether you feel like you meet them, yes or no. That would be your self-assessment. You would make any comments, and I mentioned I encourage comments as you're going through, you're looking at things. If you have a procedure document that you reference, say to meet, that you felt you met 1A, write what that is. That'll help you remember later when you're reviewing this, and it'll also be a help for your verification auditor. If they're going through your items and they're like, well, I can't find this, but you said you met it, they can look in your comment and they can be like, oh, this is what they were referring to, and they can ask for that document or whatnot. So it's very important. I say use the comment section as much as you can. It's very helpful for you and for your auditors when you're getting it audited. So we're going to start with the first element for Standard 5. We're going to talk about investigative procedures a little bit. So first element, once again, is investigative procedures. What do you have in place to investigate these foodborne illness complaints or investigations as they come up? So the first element requires you to have written procedures. You're going to hear me say procedures and protocols a lot today. So you should have written procedures that you would follow to respond and investigate those complaints and those foodborne illnesses that you get, complaints that you get. You want to identify roles, responsibilities, who's going to do what. Have contact lists. If there's something in your jurisdiction that you can't do or handle, you want to have contact lists for neighboring jurisdictions, for labs and things like that. And there's more detail we'll get to in a second. You also want to have written procedures for MOUs. That goes with the maintaining contact list. If there's something that function that you cannot perform within your county or jurisdiction, you want to have, and if you have a written agreement with someone else, an MOU program, the state agency, you want to have that in your Standard 5 investigative procedures, and that will help you meet the standard. You also want to have a database or a log of complaints. You want to, anytime, do you log complaints when you get phone calls or you get emails? I think most of you are doing electronic stuff now. So do you have a database or a log where you log those complaints as they come in? Do you have on that log, is there a procedure for how you handle the complaint? Do you investigate every complaint? Do you have a way that you filter it down or disperse it to the correct department? Do you have what was your final disposition of the complaint? You want to make sure all of that is captured and written down somewhere. Standard 5, very important that it's followed up. One of the things that I don't want to say throws off a lot of people, but a lot of people get tricked or don't meet this within 24 hours type thing. You want to make sure there's some type of action done on the complaint. It doesn't have to be closed out. It doesn't necessarily have to be, depending on the complaint, you may not be able to get to the facility in 24 hours. But Standard 5 requires you to actually do some type of action on that complaint within 24 hours of receiving that complaint, especially if it's related to food illness or injury. You want to make sure that's documented properly in your for Standard 5. This is where when I'm talking to jurisdictions and counties and states, this is usually the 24-hour one that people get hung up on a lot, because they may say, oh, we go out and we do investigate or we followed up within 24 hours, but that wasn't written down anywhere. So it's hard for the auditor to prove that it was done. So you want to make sure that's written down in your procedures. You also want to make sure you have procedure guidance for collecting samples or suspected foods. What would you do if you did have a foodborne illness outbreak and it is confirmed and you want to go collect samples? Do you have a sampling procedure written down? So you want to make sure you have procedures and guidance for that. How would that handle? How would you handle that if it happened? Immediate notification of law enforcement. If there was an situation where you needed to involve law enforcement, or what point would you involve them? You want to make sure that is written down as well. And who would you contact? That should be all in H on the screen here. Procedures for immediate notification of law enforcement when intentional food contamination are suspected. This happens rarely, but it does happen. This is something that I know the jurisdictions that I work with a lot for the special events. Like I know a lot of the Northern Virginia counties are probably already have this because we cover it when we do those special events, when we're working with DC and things like that. So you want to make sure you know who to contact if you suspect intentional contamination. And then procedures for complaint referrals to other agencies. Say I used to get calls periodically. You may have, especially in this area, because we have a lot of government buildings that may not regulate their food safety. So you like, well, who regulates this? We've got this complaint. Who do I send it to? So you want to have procedures to follow up and get those complaints to the right person. And I'll be honest and say, especially now, it was harder in the past, but now it's hard to find who regulates some of these places. They're kind of wonky. All right, so that was investigative procedures. So you got to have all those procedures in place to help you with your standard 5 element of investigative procedures. So now the step 2, or the second criteria, is the reporting procedures. So what is reporting procedures, or what's covered under that? So now we're going to walk through the elements that are under the reporting procedures. So reporting procedures is going to cover what factors were identified on each site with your investigation. So basically, if you do have an outbreak and a confirmed outbreak, and most of you should know, somebody can put in chat, what is a confirmed foodborne illness outbreak? Do we know what the CDC definition or C4 guidelines definition of a confirmed outbreak? How many cases do we need? Y'all can put in chat or unmute. 2. Yeah, 2 or more. We need 2 or more cases for an outbreak. So you want to make sure that if you have a confirmed 2 or more outbreak, those contributing factors should be identified in each one of your investigations, those environmental assessments or whatever you're using to document your investigation reports. And then you should have in your procedures, your reporting procedures should say that you are going to report that or share that with your state EPI and CDC. So that is what your reporting procedures comprise of. So hopefully those that have investigated those outbreaks, and I know Virginia has an RRT, so I know a lot of times this is definitely shared. I think you guys have this one covered, but for those that may have not been aware of this, your reporting procedures will cover that. Those contributing factors, what do you think caused the outbreak? So preventative. So once you know what caused it, you want to hopefully prevent it in the future. You want to have that reported up, and then you want to share that report with your state EPI and CDC. And it's important to note here that it's only required. That's why I asked you what that definition is for confirmed foodborne illness outbreaks. That's 2 or more. So if you get one where you do an investigation and it's only like one person was ill, or it wasn't a confirmed foodborne illness, but you did suspect something, those do not necessarily have to be shared, just as an FYI, according to Standard 5. Now, if your state's rules are different, then you follow what the state tells you to do. So step 3, or our third element with Standard 5, is laboratory support. Now, how many of you can do thumbs up or put yes or no in chat, actually have labs in your counties or jurisdictions that will actually test for foodborne illnesses of food. They will actually test food for things like biological, chemical, or radiological contaminants. Most folks don't do that. Anybody have labs in your county or district? All right, I'm not seeing none. So this is where you definitely have documentation support needed. So a couple, okay, Fairfax will test for, okay, good. Yeah, usually some of the larger counties do test for certain things. So you want to have that written down, those programs, and we'll get into these in more detail in just a second. So what does Standard 5 require you to have in terms of lab documentation? So we've gone through and the way the standard is written, it's kind of how your flow would be if you were doing an investigation. You'll get that complaint in, you'll go out and do your investigation, then you'll finish your investigation, you'll have your report, you'll send those reports up. Okay, you had lab support, you had food items that you had to have tested. So who tested them? What did they test for? What was the outcome? So that's what step 3, this third element is. So if you don't have the capabilities to do the testing in-house, then you can have what they call MOUs, or memorandum of understanding, or you can have designated labs that will test the products for you. You just want to have for Standard 5 a written description of what your lab capabilities are, and the lab capabilities that you cannot handle, your MOU will cover that. So you want to just make sure you have a written description of who's going to handle what for you if you can handle it yourself. In that description, you want to make sure your pathogens that will be tested will be listed, who's going to test for what. Like a lot of times when we do these larger events, there's one state lab that I know of that can test for radiological contaminants, but most cannot. So that's always one that's called out. So can you test, what biological things can you test for? What chemical things can you test for? Can you test for radiological contamination? Because stuff like that. So you want to make sure that's spelled out in your laboratory support documentation. Then your network, who's your lab network? It can be within your state, it can be a regional network. You want to make sure that that network is established if your state or local lab has limitations on what they can test for. You'll come up with your lab network. And I know there's Fern labs and all that type of stuff too. So within Virginia, I think y'all are covered. But this will be something you still need to have that written for Standard 5. Even if it's something that you don't handle or can't cover, you need it, and you're going to send it out, that needs to be written in the standard for your jurisdiction. All right. Any questions on that? All right, lab support was pretty quick and simple. So the next one we're going to talk about is traceback procedures. Same thing. With this, if you are the one responsible, if your county issues recalls, if the state issues recalls, you want to make sure that is written down. If you are not the main one that will issue those tracebacks and recalls will be coming up next. You want to have that described. What would you do? How would you initiate those tracebacks? Who would be the one initiating the tracebacks? So you want to have a detailed description of your involvement, what your agency would do in the traceback investigation. You want to have a coordinator who's going to lead the charge in coordinating, because if you're doing traceback, there's going to be probably multiple agencies, multiple jurisdictions involved. Somebody has to coordinate that. So who would be the coordinator for the traceback investigation? And then once the traceback is done, you want to make sure you would have designated how you're going to share the report to CDC and other involved agencies, CDC, state, anybody else that's involved. So you want to make sure you have written traceback procedures also according to Standard 5. But the whole point in each of these is to make sure you understand what your role will be in a foodborne illness investigation. All right, step 5, recalls. I was getting ahead of myself and I combined tracebacks and recalls. Tracebacks generally will lead to recalls. But basically with recalls, some states do initiate their own recalls. If that is the case, then you would have that written down in your procedures. Remember, I'm saying this Standard 5, you're going to have lots helping you get your policies and procedures in place. So you want to make sure that you establish your recall procedure. What is your recall procedure? Who is going to issue it? That is, if you issue it. If you're not the jurisdiction that issues the recall, then for your Standard 5, you would just list in your documentation who issues the recall for you. Now, if you are a jurisdiction that does issue recalls, you want to make sure that your procedures line up with what they said in the 21 CFRs Part 7. That details what basically you need to have in place. And we'll get to the next slide, I think shows what the hazards and stuff. Let me make sure it's on the next slide. Yeah. You'll have to identify, what hazards and all that, but that's what in 21 CFR Part 7. Then you want to have written policies, procedures to verify the effectiveness of those recall audit checks. Basically, how effective are your recalls? How do you know that you recalled the correct product? So step 5 deals with recall procedures for you. So basically, to reiterate once again, you don't initiate recalls in your jurisdiction or district. It's handled by the state, or it's handled, usually FDA will initiate recalls, but some states can initiate recalls as well. So you want to know, what is your role? What will be your role in the recall? And that is what you will basically line up or document for your standard 5 for step 5. All right. So if you are one of those I don't know, Whitney, Virginia, does Virginia issue recalls, or can't? I think so, right?
Usually it goes through VDAX in Virginia.
Okay. So they would have, thanks for that. I know it's y'all's RRT is really big, so, and health is a big part of that RRT too. So um for those state coordinated recall procedures, those usually at VDAX, the RRT has these processes laid out where they have to basically determine, they have processes in place, or they have written procedures saying what the hazard is, how they're going to work with industry to basically issue these recall notices, who's going to go out and do the effectiveness checks and things like that. So that's kind of how it's handled. And this all is based, this is a summary. The CFRs, if you've ever read them, are very detailed, kind of like the food code. But this is a summary of what they have listed in that recall procedure. And like I said, the RRT has all of this written down. So basically, your local health jurisdiction would just basically, if you're involved in this, you would just say what your role would be. In some cases, like you may have to go out and check, make sure there's no product being sold in stores or something like that. So whatever your role will be is what you're going to line out, or what you're going to write down for your procedure for standard 5 for the recall section.
Yeah, and can y'all add in? I know a lot of people probably on the call today might have been involved like a year or so ago with the Boar's Head recall, where they went out and confirmed product had been removed from some of the facilities that we have permitted. So that's kind
Yes.
of how we get involved in those.
Yes. That's a good one. Yeah, the board said one was pretty big. And that's, so whatever you would do if a recall was issued, that's what you would list with this. I know it's a lot of words on the screen, but that's basically what it's saying. All right, any questions so far? And a lot of these recalls happen too if the restaurants get, or schools will get the product, but sometimes the recalls, let me go back one. Sometimes the recalls could happen. Like I'm thinking like the big baby food one that happened a while back. It may not really affect you all, but sometimes you'll have, like if there's a certain lot of cucumbers or something that's been recalled, you may have to verify them. Though there was a big one with sprouts. I don't know. I don't think Virginia was affected much by it, but there was a big sprout recall, and a lot of the Mediterranean chains had gotten them. So that's something you just go out and verify they don't have the implicated products. All right, media management. So how do we handle the media? How would you handle the media? Say there is a big outbreak, there is a big recall. What would you do? Do you have a public information officer or somebody that's a point person for speaking to the media? So you want to have that defined and written down with standard 5 as it pertains to outbreaks and responses. So what does this media management one entail? This is step 6, or element criteria 6 of standard 5. You want to have that written policy, that procedure. You want to identify who that point person is, who that media person is. For some agencies, they're called a public information officer, or a PIO, or a communications officer, or a media officer. You want to make sure that person is identified in your protocol and in your procedures. And then you want to define how they can come up with this, but they define how they provide information to the public. So what channels are they going to go through, things like that. So you want to have that written down. And then they would address coordinating, cooperating with other agencies, because a lot of times if there is a large outbreak that may have happened in your area, especially if you're neighbored with another state or another jurisdiction, then you may want to coordinate your response to the media. So you want to have that defined and outlined also according to this standard. Alrighty, so next we're going to jump into criteria number 7, which deals with data review and analysis. So at least once per year, Standard 5 requires you to conduct a review of the data or your complaint log, your database, your investigations, to see if there's any trends or possibly what are the contributing factors. Like if you're getting complaints on certain food products or certain restaurants or certain types of facility, like say your HSP places, like maybe you're getting a lot of nursing home complaints. So you want to annually, yearly, every year, you want to review your complaint logs and identify any trends that may stick out. There may not be any trends, but you want to still you want to review those yearly. And this is required through Standard 5, the annual review. So let's talk about that a little bit more. And this is on all complaints, not necessarily, I want to point out, it's all complaints. It's not just focused on those that were confirmed illnesses. So you want to take a look at your complaint database. Hopefully it's being logged or tracked somewhere. And Standard 5 wants you to do a review of it. Like I say, once again, do you see multiple complaints on the same establishment? Do you see the same establishment type? Is it all fast food places we're getting this type of complaint? Or are we getting full service complaints on, they're saying that we're getting a lot of complaints on, people saying that there's a lot of bare hand contact or something, or they went in and somebody's doing something for full service restaurants. So what type of complaints are you getting? As your investigations are going out and your inspectors and EHSs are going out there, are there certain foods that they're saying, okay, I think this food is doing, I went out there, we got this complaint on bare hand contact, and then I went to this place and they were touching sandwiches and deli meat, and we got illnesses, norovirus coming up. So what food type? And it may not be something that was a national foodborne illness confirmed, but it could be something within your local jurisdiction. So you want to see this data review and analysis. What are those trends? What are those complaints? Preparation processes, is it something risk we talked about earlier? I think last week it briefly mentioned about, you should know there's 3 types of risk. That you have food that goes through the danger zone one time, then you got multiple trips through the danger zone. So is it fast food stuff where they cook and serve, or are they cooling and serve? That's what it means by similar food preparation processes. Are our more high risk foods, are we getting more complaints in those establishments versus our low risk foods like our coffee shops that just heat stuff and serve it or stuff like that? So you want to identify any trends, and this is required once again to be done yearly. Now, also with your data review, you want to take a look at those laboratory confirmed illnesses in your pertaining to your jurisdiction. And are there any epi-linked foods? Did you collect samples? Did you get foods tested and you see a trend in certain food items? So you want to take a look at that laboratory confirmed data review also. Confirmed foodborne disease outbreaks, suspected ones. You may have had some that were confirmed, but we didn't have the lab support to actually say it was that particular product, but you suspected it was that product. So you want to take a look at that, review it, and analyze that and see if there's anything you could do preventative for that also. Any contributing factors, as you went out and did your investigations, what was the root cause, or what caused those outbreaks or those complaints to come in? And you want to identify those in your yearly data analysis. If you had any intentional contamination complaints, okay, this is really rare, thankfully. But if you do have complaints of intentional contamination, you want to see, okay, what was happening? What was the chemical? Was it chemical? Was it biological? What was the threat, the agent they were using? Were they taking, I'm trying to think, there was one a while ago in Texas where the guy took some rat poisoning and put on in some salsa. So if you have multiple complaints of that, you're getting chemical poisoning complaints in a particular type of restaurant, why is this happening? What's the caveat to this. There was a disgruntled employee that was actually going to place in this particular case. But what's actually happening? You want to take a look at that, the trends, and see how you can educate operators and prevent that. That's the whole point of the data analysis and review. And then, like I say, same agent, usually if it's contaminated or intentionally. And then complaints involving the same agent. It can even be biological. If you're getting a large string of noro outbreaks associated with it, what could we do with that? How can we prevent that? This is not, I don't think they're enrolled in the standards, but I know there's a cruise ship chain that had a lot of noro complaints, and they basically took every year they do something similar. They go in, they take a look at their number of complaints they get. They take a look at what food suspect is causing this. They take a look at it, if it's transmitted by employee, what's going on, is it hand washing, what's missing, and they try to prevent that from happening. Is it customers and things like that. So that's the type of thing you want to do. Look at what's happening, what your complaints are coming on, what's the suspected illness, what's the suspected pathogen, what is it, and how you can help control that. That'll help you that's what Standard 5 will help you do also. Now, so you say, okay, what if I don't have a foodborne illness complaint? Because there were very few, I think there were like 2 jurisdictions that said they actually worked an outbreak investigation locally. So what do you do? Because Standard 5, you won't be able to meet it from what I've been saying unless you have an outbreak. So if no outbreak investigation has happened within your jurisdiction or district, you can do a mock exercise. Or you can participate in a mock exercise, and that will help you meet that standard. So if you don't have an outbreak within the last 12 months in your jurisdiction, never fear, you can do a mock exercise. And some folks like to come up with their own. That's perfectly fine. There's also, some of you may be familiar with, they're called Freebie. It's on the FDA website. It's food safety, food defense mock exercises that involves, there are a couple of them that are retail oriented, where you would go in, they give you background, they give you scenario, you would form an exercise, you can do it virtually, you can do it in person with all of your partners that would be involved with an outbreak. Like, say, I think there was one on like a taco restaurant. There's also another one on a stadium with like contaminated water. So if you were to get this complaint, if somebody calls you and you get 10 people calling you saying, oh, I went to this basketball game and I ended up sick, how would you start? What would you handle? There's a scenario on that with that, and you can do a mock exercise, and that can help you know how prepared you would be if you were to get an investigation or a complaint, so you know how to operate it or how to work through it. All right, hold on 1 second.
Hey, Kenya, I
Yay.
have a question about the data review and analysis section.
Uh-huh.
So if are we supposed to include, when they say complaints, if somebody contacts a local health department and says, oh, we saw roaches in the kitchen, we're filing a complaint, are those included in the data review and analysis? Or are we only looking at those reports of 2 or more where we believe we may have a suspected or confirmed foodborne disease outbreak?
Let me check, but my understanding is you should review all complaints in your jurisdiction. Let me make sure.
Yeah, because that section confuses me a little bit
Yeah,
in that, the first
let me see how
under
it's
item
worded.
B, like 1 through 6, all specifically call out foodborne disease outbreaks, suspected outbreaks, and confirmed outbreaks. And only items 8 and 9 talk about specifically about complaints. And so I kind of see
Yeah.
those, we keep those differently in Virginia, like air foodborne illness reporting system is my meal detective. And so we have a good tracking mechanism for kind of keeping those locally. However, like if a food safety complaint comes in where somebody is reporting something that might not be safe or in violation of our regulations, that might come to a local health department and they might put that in their database as a complaint. And so it would be filed in a different system. And so I'm just trying to get
Oh,
clarification for everybody as to, are we doing an analysis of both? Are we combining? Are we keeping them separate? Just so everybody has a better understanding of that section and what kind of review they need to be doing.
let me see. I'm pulling up there's a clearinghouse interp on this, I believe. Let's see.
I want to say it says all complaints, which is
Yeah.
doesn't exactly line up with the 1 through 9 because um, it
Yeah, it
doesn't really
does say
say
all.
complaints. It says foodborne disease outbreaks. And
It
in
said,
in
oh,
my
sorry, go
mind,
ahead.
an outbreak or even a suspected outbreak is different than somebody coming in and saying, "We saw an employee, we saw a dirty table or whatever," like just filing a general complaint.
This is the answer from the clearinghouse document, and it doesn't specify. So I want to say it kind of leaves it open, and great question, Whitney, to your discretion, because there are some folks that will analyze all of them, but they separate them between general complaints, illness complaints, and then confirmed complaints. So it sounds like that in your way y'all's are set up, it may be hard to get because they're two different databases from what I'm hearing. And let
Yes,
me see,
yeah,
it
I
stresses
think
the
that's
logging
what
of
most will
response.
have is everybody will have their My Meal Detective, which is people reporting foodborne illnesses, which all the local health districts will have their own, kind of batch of reports that they receive through that. But then there will be another database or data collection point for everybody on the other complaints that they receive locally. Um, and I see Jim put in the chat, they've always
Yeah,
assumed the intent of Standard 5 is foodborne illness issues, not dirty floors or, reports such as that we also get and we also investigate, but aren't necessarily associated with a suspected foodborne outbreak.
right. Okay, I don't know what. Okay, you're back. I lost y'all for a second. So I'll say it this way: this is, since it's not specific, and I looked in here, and it does say number of complaints involving real or alleged threats. I think you would be safe, and I don't think an auditor would say, "Oh, you didn't evaluate, your cockroach complaints or your dirty floor complaints." So I think you would be safe and still meeting the standard if you did not assess those because it doesn't specify that you have to. Because of that, if you choose to, you can. But I think the focus is what's the riskier item, and I would rather you analyze data on something that's going to cause foodborne illness versus something that won't, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
All right, good question. Any other question? Yeah, because I always have this saying. I say that in my risk-based inspection course, I always tell people I don't know of any foodborne illnesses that happen with dirty floors. So don't focus, check them, but don't focus on them. So yeah, I would take the same approach with this, but great question, Whitney. Thanks for asking it. All right, any other questions on this one? All right, so this is just showing you what the form would look like. So you've gone through all of that. You've got all those procedures in place. You have assessed everything. You've checked your investigation procedures. Then you have, I don't think it shows me the other ones. But you've done your investigative procedures. You've checked your reporting procedures. You
We're not
have,
seeing your slides, by the way.
oh, you're not? Uh-oh.
Yeah, not. I think that you went off of them and I probably sidetracked you. Sorry.
Thought I was still sharing. I may have to share again. Are they back up now, or y'all still can't see them?
Not yet on my end.
What happened? There we go.
Yes. See them
You see
now.
it now?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I must have stopped sharing by accident. Sorry about that, y'all. I was just talking and y'all couldn't see what I was saying. So you've gone through, so this is just a sample of the work showing the worksheet where you've gone through those procedures, you've checked your investigative procedures, you've checked your reporting procedures, you've gone through that lab support documentation, you've checked those traceback procedures, you have recall procedures in place, you've got media management procedures, and you've done data review and analysis, and you've got documentation of all of that. Then you would say this is your self-assessment and it's done, and you would pass that information on to your verification auditor, who would see if they agree with you or not, and then that would prove hopefully you met that standard. All right, before we get to the questions, any other, or the participant guide questions, any other questions from you all? Because like I say, this is your workshop, your time to make sure you get what you need out of this standard. And this is one of those, like I say, preparing for outbreaks and investigations. You want to have your stuff in place before it happens, because you don't want to have it be in the middle of an outbreak trying to get procedures in place. All right, everybody have the participant guide. Does anyone need it? Because we're going to go through those questions. Participant manual. If you have it, we're going to do the standard 5 questions, which starts on page 25 in that PDF document that was sent the last time. And on some of those where there seems to be a lot of, like if you have to just copy and paste from actual standard, just put the page number or just tell me what page it is when I ask you what you put in there. I'll give you about 10 minutes. Well, let's try 11. Let's go to the top of the hour and then we'll talk about those. So questions are on page 25 in that participant manual. There are 7, I believe. There's 9. There's 9 pertaining to standard 5. And we will walk through those at the top of the hour. I'll check in with y'all at the top of the hour to see how far you are. Is everybody with me? And thank you. Whitney has put the manual in the chat. All right. I'll check back in with y'all at 11. All right, how are y'all coming? You got through most of the questions. Anybody need a little more time? And as Casey, I saw your chat note. We were working on the questions from the participant guide. That's page 5, page 5 of that PDF. All right, you can, and hopefully y'all can still hear me because it's loud out in my hallway for some reason. But give a hand raise if anybody needs more time. Can we get going? Raise your hand if you need
We
a
can
few
hear
more
you.
minutes. Okay, perfect. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I don't see any hands. Well, I do see a hand. All right, question 1. Still see slides okay? If you don't, let me know. So first question pertaining to standard 5. It says describe the core criteria in standard 5 that must be checked during a program self-assessment or a verification audit. All right, who wants to tell me what that is? Or tell me where you found the answer. What are the 7 criteria for standard 5? Are y'all typing? Page 5.2, I think Whitney, there you go. Yeah, it's on page 5.2 in the program 2022 program standards. And it is these: investigative procedures, reporting procedures, lab support documentation, traceback procedures, recalls, media management, data review, and analysis. All right, good job. Thanks, Victoria and Whitney. All right, next question. And this one is a long one, so don't type all of it. Just tell me where you found it. Standard 5 criteria identifies 9 components to be included as part of a jurisdiction's investigative procedures. What are those 9 components? Where is that located? Page 5.4. Agree. Thank you, Jessica. Yep, there's 3 of them. It's written procedures for response and investigation, identifying roles and responsibilities, getting your contact list together, having written procedures or MOUs, departments, programs, and agencies that you would work with to investigate foodborne illness complaints and investigations, database or log of those complaints, procedure for complaint disposition or referral, and disposition action follow-up conducted within 24 hours for anything that is food related or injuries. Okay. Procedures guidance for collecting information on suspected foods, procedures during investigations, procedures for immediate notification of law enforcement officials when intentional contamination incidences are suspected, and procedures for complaint referrals to other agencies having jurisdiction. There you go. All right. Oh, before we go to this question, when I mentioned law enforcement on this, I'll tell y'all a story. It wasn't a state that I worked with, but I was at a seminar one year, and it was one of the Carolinas. I can't remember if it was North or South Carolina, but they had gotten several complaints on this facility on a Friday. It was Friday afternoon. You know, everything hits the fan on Friday afternoon. And they went out to investigate. People said they were getting sick and that it was some seedy activity going on or whatever in the in the facility. So the investigators went out there because they just thought it was just normal, foodborne illness complaints. They were standing, they had stuff stored improperly and people were doing bare hand contact. And a couple of folks said that they had gotten gastrointestinal illnesses. So when the investigators went out to investigate, they found that there was drug activity happening at the place. And so that's how law enforcement got involved. So, of course, that was not how anyone wanted to spend their Friday afternoon. But that complaint investigation that they thought was going to be foodborne illness turned actually into something that they passed off to law enforcement to handle because that was above their forte in the health department. All right, question number 3. Does standard 5 criteria require all complaint follow-ups to be reported to the epidemiologist and CDC, or only those that meet the definition of a foodborne outbreak? What do we think? So I see only foodborne illness outbreak. I would agree. Standard 5 says that you only have to report to your state epi or to CDC any contribute factor or report that was done, investigation done, that is if it results in a foodborne illness outbreak. And remember that definition we said earlier, 2 or more is what falls into that category. Very good. See, a couple folks got that one right. Nice job. And question number 4. What type of laboratory support documentation should be included in a jurisdiction's foodborne illness, food defense, preparedness, and response program? Tell me what should be in there or where you found it. All right, see page 5.3. Yep. See a couple 5.3. Good. So written description or MOU of capabilities for lab support. What can you do in-house or external? What pathogens, agents, adulterants that can be identified. So basically you want to have a letter of understanding, written procedures, your contract, your MOU acknowledging all of that would be listed under this portion of the standard. What that laboratory is willing to take and what they can analyze for, and then a list of alternate laboratory contacts from which you could seek assistance if needed. So good. And all of that is on page, oh, I went too far. On page 5.3. All right, question 5. Sorry, my voice is like going in and out. What information should be included in a state, local, tribal, territorial, regulatory, retail food programs traceback procedures? What do you need to have in your traceback procedures? And that is also on page 5.3. You want to have traceback procedures should basically document, describe your involvement in the coordination of appropriate agencies for performing tracebacks, identify who's going to coordinate that, and how you share your reports. So basically, you want to describe what your involvement would be in traceback. And question number 6, what information should be included in a state, local, tribal, territorial, regulatory, retail food programs recall procedures? 5.3. Victoria, you are quick on the draw. 5.3, 5.5. Very good, very good. Basically, similar situation. What would your involvement be in recalls? What would you do? If you are a state agency or one of those agencies that actually initiate recalls, you're going to have a little more detail written in this procedure. And this has to be in line with 21 CFR. So very, very good. All right, question 7. Oops, I went too far. All right, so if a county has a policy about how you work with state on recalls, but the state does not have a policy similar to 21 CFR Part 7, The county does not have authority for conducting recalls. Can the county meet standard 5? What do you think? Yes or no? So you have a policy in place that you have worked with the state, but the state doesn't have a policy similar to 21 CFR. County does not have authority for conducting recalls. Can you still meet standard 5? I see a lot of yeses. Yes, you can. Because one thing is we don't want to penalize you for something that you cannot perform, for a duty or function that you can't control or regulate. But basically, you can still meet this because all you're required to do is list what your responsibilities would be. And that has been covered and done. So good. You all got that one. Nice. And that's basically what that says. All right. Question 8. Standard 5 requires an annual review and analysis of foodborne outbreaks and complaints. The standard lists several types of data review a jurisdiction is to conduct based on the complaint information and investigations conducted during the year. Describe some of the types of data review a jurisdiction is to conduct. So where is that found within the standard? What page? 5, 4, and 7. That's where it's found. And basically the next few slides will tell you what is on those pages. So data review and analysis, you want to identify multiple complaints on the same establishment type, implicated same food, associated food similar processes, laboratory confirmed outbreaks or epi-linked outbreaks, suspect disease outbreaks, contributing factors, most identified, involving real alleged threats and complaints involving the same agent. All right, last question, number 9. Must a jurisdiction have a full investigation that results in samples taken and a full report sent to CDC to avoid a mock investigation? Or is a smaller investigation sufficient to avoid the mock investigation requirement? And what triggers the need for a mock investigation? So a couple questions in this. So first one, must the jurisdiction have a full investigation that results in samples taken and a full report sent to CDC to avoid a mock investigation? Yes or no on that one? Okay. So what do you need? Can you do a smaller investigation? Is it sufficient to avoid the mock? Okay, I see yes. Okay. So basically with this standard, the whole point is to test your readiness. That's the point of the mock investigation, to test your readiness. So if you have had any type of event where you have had to investigate, small or large, you need to investigate an outbreak in order to meet the standard. And to Emily's point, she put suspected or confirmed. You just need to, so if you've within the year, if you did some type of outbreak investigation, you in essence have tested your program readiness. You do not have to conduct a mock investigation. If you have not, then you need to conduct the mock investigation, if that makes sense. Any questions on that?
Kenya,
Yes.
would that mean that you would have to do an environmental assessment or no?
You have to do yes, because you don't have to necessarily take samples, but
Right,
you have to do an environmental assessment.
right.
Yes,
So
because
basically
you're
that
testing the
says
readiness.
you have
Yes,
to do at least one environmental assessment
yes,
of a suspected or confirmed
of it.
outbreak in the course
Right.
of the year. Okay. Just wanted to
Yes,
clarify that.
yes, yes. Thank you. Right, and to Emily's point, environmental assessment is likely part of your procedures for investigating an outbreak. Yes, or it should be. If it's not, you might want to look at the procedures. Good. Any questions? Any other questions? Yeah, some of these questions are worded wrong. I got to go in here and edit them out because I don't. This is pulled from our main workshop, but some of them are worded a little wonky. So I got a question in chat. If you're part of an outbreak of a facility not regulated by the health department, like a facility where priests are trained, can that be included for standard 5? Great question. As long as you have investigated that outbreak, you did your due diligence to investigate an outbreak, and you follow the procedure that you probably would have involved other parties, then yes, I would think that would help you meet the standard, because you're basically testing your effectiveness of your procedures for the standard. But you have to make sure you have attested, you have done, followed your protocol and your procedures. And it looks like Whitney agrees, yes. And that can be done as kind of like a mock, even though you don't regulate them, you're still out there following your procedures and protocols that you have in place. Good question. Any other questions on standard 5?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think even in their environmental assessments, there is an option for if it's like a non-regulated facility, like if you're investigating,
Okay.
like let's just say an unregulated wedding event or something, something that was a foodborne outbreak, but wasn't necessarily permitted facility, I think is what they're getting at.
Yes, it would meet the intent. It can be included. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, anytime you can test, like I say, your ability to work an outbreak, I say do it, because a lot of times, as you saw from the question when I opened up the call today, not many folks have actually worked confirmed outbreaks. So you want to use that opportunity to, get out there in the field and see what it's like whenever you can. All right, I think I stopped sharing this now, and I'm going to get to the next set of slides, which is standard 7. Sure, I got it pulled up. All right, try to share again. Uh-oh, now I gotta find it. Hold on, y'all. Is it showing the PowerPoint?
It's not in presentation mode yet, but we do see oh, there it goes. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Thank you. All right, standard 7. And thanks, Whitney, for putting that in the chat for me. Makes it a lot easier. Standard 7 is one of those that I shouldn't have a favorite standard, but if I do, it probably be standard 7. Those of you that have been involved with the program standards for a while know that this is one a lot of folks actually like to start with, because I don't want to say it's easy to meet, but it's kind of the low-hanging fruit. It doesn't take much to meet the standard. And it's also a fun one to do. It's not as tedious as, like, we just went through standard 5 and it was all about, oh, we got to get all these procedures in place and we got to do all this documentation and we got to collect all this and find all these contacts. This one is more interactive per se. So this is one that a lot of people like to just go ahead and do and meet if they can. So standard 7, we're going to jump right into it. It deals with industry and community relations. And same thing, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat, unmute yourselves, and talk. So if you're going to start your self-assessment on standard 7, what do you need? Same thing we kind of went through with standard 5. You obviously need a copy of the standard. You want to check the clearinghouse for any interps, that self-assessment and verification audit form that you've seen multiple times already. Any of your records, you want to check your jurisdiction records of meetings that you may held, or online virtual forums or in-person forums, in order to support industry relations. Any records or examples you have of educational outreach that your department has done. So that's what you want to have in place or have readily available when you're doing your self-assessment for standard 7. Now, standard 7, it actually has a worksheet. I think this may be one of the first ones we've seen with the actual worksheet. So if you go to our website, the links that were posted there, you would click on standard 7. The PDF gives you all the details about the standard. That self-assessment verification audit form is the form where you would check yes if you've met it or no, and the same for the verification part. And then there's a worksheet that we'll talk about briefly at the end. It's optional. Like I say, with all the reminder, with all of these worksheets, they are optional. If you have a way that you're currently, if you're working on standard 7 now or have worked on it in the past, if you have a way that you're documenting it, that's perfectly fine. You do not have to use the FDA provided worksheet. As a matter of fact, I've seen some jurisdictions worksheets that are much more better, more detailed and better than the one we provide you. So please use anything that you find helpful. Worksheets are optional, so you do not have to use our provided worksheets. And then also we talked about, I mentioned in the first workshop, I meant to mention it was standard 5, but if you're one of those jurisdictions where you need help with your any of your procedures or getting things in place and any worksheets that you like, if you don't like ours, I highly recommend Food Shield again. And I think we talked about that last week. And if anybody needs to get into Food Shield, if you don't have an account, or that Program Standards Resource Center group in Food Shield, reach out so we can get you in that group, because there's a lot of resources in there too where other jurisdictions can have done work on standards, and there's a lot of resource materials and materials you may can use there also to help you. All right, so let's jump into. So standard 7 only has 2 core criteria. We just left one that had 7. Now we're going to one that has only 2. So what does standard 7 require you to have? Standard 7 requires you to talk and interact with your industry and your consumer base. And then it requires you to have provide educational outreach. Short and to the point. So let's see, what does that entail? We'll start with the first one, which deals with our industry and consumer interaction. So for industry and consumer interaction, let me see. Before I get into this, anybody, I know some folks have worked on standard 7. Has anybody worked on it and verified it and wants to talk to us and tell us what you did to meet this portion of standard 7? The industry and community relations part. Anybody? Come on. Or what are some things, if you haven't worked on it specifically in your jurisdiction, what are some things, do you know some things that you could utilize or do to help meet this portion of standard 7? Are y'all quiet? Let's see. All right, here comes some stuff. Website, a newsletter to the public. That's a couple things. Website, newsletter to the public. Yep. Those are some of the ones, let's say, like to start teaching ServSafe classes. That's a biggie, teaching classes. Customer service surveys for regulated facilities. Good. Posting inspection report. Yeah, actually, I see posting inspection reports with a question mark. That's an outreach item. Presentations to industry and or community. So this is another reason why I like this standard. It's not as prescriptive. Be as creative as possible. It says Fairfax County has participated in educational conferences that involve industry partners as presenters. So you can get creative with this one. You can have a food safety task force meetings. I know Virginia does have a food protection task force. You can have advisory boards, committees, advisory meetings. You can do consumer forums, and a lot of people now use websites and social media to actually interact with their constituents in their jurisdiction. I know there's some, when I was at local level, we had a local public, I think it was on the local PBS station, but the health department had a channel, a time slot there. So once a month we would do a food safety talk, a TV show on there, and where we invited, it was couple regulators, then we invited consumers, and we invited folks from industry, and we talk about hot topics. It's kind of like a visual blog per se, but we have discussions about that so that people have done TV shows and stuff like that, or got creative. People posted quick little videos. Just any way you can get interactions within feedback within your uh, jurisdictions. Let's see, lunch and learn, temporary vendors, health department, open house group tours. Yeah, things like that. Any way you can basically get outreach. You want to make sure you're establishing two-way communication is what the key is with this one. So on the screen, it says here you can participate in forums. Any way you can get information exchange, any outreach activities would provide education outreach for consumers. That's what that part does. So y'all gave some good examples there. Let's see. Do you actively participate in things like food safety task forces, those advisory committees, food safety strategies, intervention forums, conferences conferences have to be tailored. Like you can host a conference, but you want to make sure that conference involves that two-way communication type of thing for this portion, this element of standard one. You definitely can use conferences for the second element, which is educational. Let's see, you want to use some people like say social media is getting bigger now, and health departments are now using that more so too, to offer input on their programs as well to consumers. Okay, this is that worksheet that I mentioned that is optional. You do not have to use this worksheet, but this is on the website. And basically, it kind of gives you an example of what you would need, how you would track these, like if you were doing a forum, an industry and a consumer interactive forum. Basically, what you would need to do is make sure you document who participated and by their organization. So what regulatory agencies were there, their name and their organization, what industry participants were there, you need name and organization, same with that. And then consumers, you would just list, and if it's a consumer group, like just trying to think of, I cannot think of a consumer group, but I know they're active in CFP and it slipped my mind, but there's a consumer group that's very active. I know with the allergens with CFP, they come every 4 years, and they talk about allergen education and stuff. So if those consumer groups are participating, you want to list their names and groups like that. Or if it's just normal people, you just list their names. So you want to make sure all of that is tracked. The meeting date that you had you want to make sure you have the forum, the dates that you have these meeting. If it's something that's reoccurring, you could just, instead of listing each date, you can just put reoccurrence also. There's several different ways you can track this. You just want to make sure it's monitored and tracked. It's very critical with this that you track these, because a lot of times things are done and folks are not necessarily tracking them. And then a lot of times we get asked the question, say, well, hey, I invited, consumers, but nobody showed up. That's fine. As long as you extend the invite, it's on them whether they show up or not. You can still get credit for the standard as long as you invite folks to the meeting. Now, second part of the standard deals with education outreach. So what does that entail? Well, y'all put some of that in chat already. This is things such as, having webinars, having conferences, providing educational materials to your folks in your jurisdictions, consumers and industry, targeting food safety campaigns. We just got through the holidays. Think about, did any of your health departments put out, a lot of times I'll see information, especially around Thanksgiving, on a proper storage of food. So did any of your districts or health departments do that? That's an educational campaign, something like that. So if you put out any materials, or that would meet this portion of the standard. It could be websites, news letters, social media, Food Safety Month, Serve Safe classes. We taught Serve Safe when I was at local health department. That was how we met this portion of the standard also. And then posting inspection reports on websites. Someone mentioned that earlier. This is where that would go for the educational outreach, because you're alerting your consumers and letting them know the risk associated with the risk and the positives associated with the facilities that they go and dine at often. So posting inspection information would also meet this portion of the standard. And I want to reiterate with this, like I say, this is a portion. Standard 7 allows you to get creative and tell your story, and definitely get creative with this portion. Do you have recognition programs? Like, do you have, I know some counties do active managerial control recognition. That would be standard 7. There is a jurisdiction I work with in another state that does directors awards. Like, they give awards once a year. They have a big conference where all the facilities that basically had low risk, like low number of, they call them criticals, low number of critical items, and they have to meet all this other criteria. They get a certificate and an award from the director of the health department. So that's a big to do. And everybody comes there and they provide them lunch. It's grant funded, and they give them this director award. That is a part of standard 7. That's their education and outreach to them. All right, this on the screen here, this is an example of a food safety bulletin. So tell me, do you think this would meet the intent of standard 7? Would this, or the educational outreach portion of it, if somebody was to post this? Yes, Jim says yes, it was. This is an educational material. So I know a lot of you have handouts and you have things that you post on your websites. That's perfectly fine. Even if you're in your health department, if you have like a little pickup spot where you've got pamphlets and things posted, if you have food safety bulletins or newsletters or educational materials, they're available, that would meet this intent of standard 7. This is another example. This one is, I think, showing their inspection report. So people would go in and you would log in and you would basically look for your establishment, or they could search for establishments to see what their latest health department inspection report says. That meets the educational outreach portion of the standard. So that's perfectly fine too. There's several, like I say, there's no right or wrong way. This one is not as restrictive because they want you to be creative. Educational outreach assessment. So I showed you the first part of the worksheet. This is the optional worksheet again, and this basically allows you to track what you've done for educational outreach. So here you would put dates. Say you hosted a food safety, you submitted or you mailed out or emailed food safety bulletins to all your jurisdictions. You list the date and what you did. That's basically what this entails right here. Or you had somebody that did a food safety blast around Thanksgiving. So you would put the date it was sent out and what it was. Food safety blast on proper holding and refrigeration of foods. That's basically what it is. Very simple here, but you want to have it documented that it was done so that when you're doing your self-assessment and when your verification auditor is verifying, they would know that these things were actually done and they would know the dates it was done. All right, standard 7. It's pretty quick. Those are the only two. So you met those. It put X's on your thing. Take it to your verification auditor, and boom, hopefully you would have met it. All right, we will walk through these because standard 7 is pretty quick. I think it's only 3 questions. And oh my gosh, we're finishing really, really early today. But next time it's going to be more in depth because we got standard 9 we got to work on. So let's go back to our manual and we will walk through these questions. We'll do these together since it's just 3. It's going to be starting on page 33. So what I'll do is I will read the question. I'll give y'all a few minutes to think about the answer. And then once you get it, you can put in chat or you can unmute. All right, everybody with me on page 33 of the participant manual. We're going to go through standard 7 questions. Question 1. Describe the 2 core criteria in standard 7 that must be checked during a program self-assessment or a verification audit. So for standard 7, what are the 2 elements we're looking at, the 2 core criteria? All right, Selma was quick on the draw with that. We got industry and consumer interaction. And second, educational outreach materials. Good. Let's see, I think I agree with you. Everybody agree? Yep, those are the 2 core criteria. Industry and consumer interaction and educational outreach. So for standard 7, how are you interacting with your industry and your consumer base? And what educational materials or outreach are you doing? Those are the 2 elements that you have to meet in order to meet standard 7. All right, next question. Question 2. Would participation in the Conference for Food Protection, or CFP, by being on a board, a committee, or a council constituent meet the requirement of the standard for the industry and consumer interaction? So would participation in CFP on a board, a committee, or a council rep meet the requirement of the industry and consumer interaction portion of standard 7? Got a couple yeses and I got some nos. Ooh, divided. This one's a little tricky, but I kind of agree with the no's. It does not meet that portion because it's not pertaining to your jurisdiction. You want to participate. Oh, it's okay. Don't cry. We're here to learn. It's all good. I don't hold it against you. So you want to make sure that you're sponsoring activities that are related to your community or your jurisdiction. So you want to have focused, like food safety task forces, advisory boards or committees, other forums. CFP is national, so you want to make sure these interactions happen within your district or your community, if that makes sense. Does that help? All right. I love the
Yeah.
reactions. Hey,
What
Whitney,
about
you had
what about looking at it from a state perspective, like Air Office?
a state perspective. Well, you could host, um, your state is involved in the task force, and then task force, I'm trying to think if they host meetings that
So if we
participate.
we participate in the Food Safety Task Force and have members on that, does that count?
It counts as long as you're actively participating in something where where consumers are invited.
Uh,
And I'm trying to think, I know they host a meeting that industry is invited to, but I don't know if they invite consumers.
okay.
That's the only, yeah. So it has to be something where whether they show up or not, they have to be invited to. That's a good question.
Okay.
Um, I need to follow up because I want to say it's open to everybody to anybody can come to that task force annual meeting, I
Yeah,
think, or
I
annual.
think I think it is open to anybody, to the public.
Yeah. Yeah. And if that's the case, then yes, the state would meet it based off of that. I need to check with Kelsey because I can't remember. All right. Any other questions on this one? All right. Question number 3. So, this may answer the question a little bit, Whitney. It says the state coordinates and facilitates a food safety task force. The food safety task force consists of industry, academia, state regulatory, consumers, and other stakeholders. If a local regulatory jurisdiction participates as a member of the state food safety task force, could that local jurisdiction then report they meet standard 7 criteria for industry and consumer interaction? What do y'all think? We kind of talked about it a little bit. Yes or no? So you have a state coordinated food safety task force This task force is comprised of industry, academia, regulatory, consumers, and other stakeholders. Local regulatory jurisdiction participates as a member of the State Food Safety Task Force. Could that local jurisdiction then report they meet Standard 7 criteria for industry and consumer interaction? Jessica has a yes. See, Victoria has a yes. Selma has a yes. Yeah, this one is a little bit tricky. Okay, so this one is actually, and I'm going to show you the intern from Clearinghouse. Clearinghouse is basically where if there's a question comes up about the standards, the question is submitted to what we call the Public Program Standards Clearinghouse. There are 3 FDA folks on there, and there's 5 or 6. We're 5 right now. We'll soon to be 6 folks from state or local regulatory. And we fill these questions and we discuss the questions and we come up with answers to the questions. So Clearinghouse answer is yes, saying that sponsors, if each year your jurisdiction participates in at least one regulatory industry consumer forum that has direct impact on your regulatory retail program. So the question may not have been worded clearly. So you're on the task force and they focus on things that are happening in your jurisdiction. You involve consumers that are in your jurisdiction on, like say you invite them, they may not come, but they're invited. That will have direct impact on your retail program. Then you can meet this portion of the standard by just that. Now, it's very confusing, but as long as you have some interaction, it's a state forum where it's open to consumers in your jurisdiction to attend, and you're providing educational outreach activities based off of that task force to your consumers, then yes, you can meet the standard. Does that make sense, or did I just confuse you more? I see thumbs up. All right, and I'm going to show, let me stop sharing this real quick. And you're probably like, where is this at? How do you know this? I'm going to try to share this in Interp if it lets me. Let me see. Find it. All right, let me see. Okay, it won't let me share the PDF, y'all. Sorry, I was going to try to share. But if you take a look, it's on page.
Is there something I
pull
can
up
help
that
you
clear-
with, Kenya? What are you trying to share?
Yeah, I was trying to share the clearinghouse document from the web page, but for some reason,
Hang on one second. See if I can get it up here. Share.
and I'm scared if I do entire screen, it won't share right.
See if you could. Is this the document?
Loading on my end. That is the document.
Which one?
So you're in standard 7. Go
Yeah.
to,
Yep.
okay, hold on, stop right there. Let's see. CFPB used. Well, there's a CFP question, but I thought it was one, yeah, State District Health Department. Question number 2. Let's go to question number 2.
Okay.
Because it explains it a little bit more. I think this question was submitted by Iowa, I believe, Idaho. So basically what they were saying was in their larger jurisdictions, they kind of host their own advisory meetings and task force meetings. But a lot of their rural districts didn't have the capacity to do that. So the state formed the task force, but they have those smaller counties and smaller districts as a part of that task force. So the materials that are produced through that task force, those smaller counties and jurisdictions actually use that as outreach, and they also invite their constituents to those meetings. I think it was once or twice a year. So that's why in this case it does meet the intent of Standard 7. And like I say, it's there for you to read, and this is all online too. So and this was answered back in 2008, and we review these every CFP clearinghouse takes a look at these Q&A and make sure they're up to date. And this one is still current because we haven't pulled it out. We remove the ones that are not
Hey,
still in
Kenya,
line.
if
Uh,
if we have time, can we look at question 4 as well?
yes.
That
Is
was
that
one,
about the social media one?
that was the one about social media. Yeah, and I know we
Yeah.
mentioned that in earlier about social media, and it looks like to me that the clearinghouse basically says no at this point, and that more information is needed.
Yes. Glad you brought that up because this is one that we are just looking at. We've been looking at for, it says 2011. We sent it to the Program Standards Committee. For those of you on the call that aren't aware, as a part of CFP, there's standing committees, and one of those standing committees is the Program Standards Committee. So any changes that are being made to program standards go through that committee. And this was one that Clearinghouse felt was unclear in the way the current version of the standards is written. So we want the committee to look at it. And they, to my knowledge, are looking at it, but we did follow up with them. I know Clearinghouse sent a request in August to follow up with this because we're getting a lot of questions on this. So right now, some forms of social media, if it's obvious that its interaction is okay, but
Kenya, I think we lost your audio. I don't know if you can hear me.
asking, how much interaction, and that one we don't know yet. So that was
We lost you there for a minute, I think, Kenya.
cool. So that is to be. Okay, I don't know why my audio is going in and out. Yeah, so this is something that I don't know how much of that y'all heard, but the committee we have asked them to continue to look at this and hopefully give us an answer by next CFP time frame because social media is changing. I know there have been a few jurisdictions though that have used interaction, like when they send web blasts on the educational material part, you can use social media for that. But the actual interaction part, that's what we're not sure about with social media. And that's what we want the committee to tell us what they think. So yeah, to be determined. I think that is all I had on standard 7. So any other questions? Anybody on the line working on standard 7 or has worked on it recently? Like I say, it's a
Kenya, what about our My Meal Detective? Would that be included in Standard 7 in that it was a reporting system that people can report foodborne illness throughout the Commonwealth?
it's more, we talked about this a few years ago and I can't remember what we came up with. I think that one was more, My Meal Detective is more looked at as kind of a complaint system as opposed to a feedback, two-way communication. I think what we came on with that one is just one-way communication, and it helps you more in investigating complaints. With standard 7, you want something more, and I'm not sure how it works. So if it works where you can have two-way communication, then it would meet it. But you want to make sure that if someone sends a question or a response or a complaint that they are followed up on, that they get that the communication with the health department happens. And if that happens, then yes, you could possibly use it for that. And I think that's what people were. That's why the social media thing is so iffy, because it's like one way. Somebody could post a comment, but if no one responds from the health department, then it's not that two-way communication type thing. So that's what the issue is with that interaction type, if that makes sense. So I know I didn't answer it all the way, but it's complicated and it depends. It can
Sure.
be, but
Yeah, I know a lot of districts, and we have a state inbox for food safety where the general public can email us and we will respond to them. That is two-way communication, and that's kind of in that question, I think, in the clearinghouse, in that if you have something set up, like local health district was to have an inbox where the public could contact them and they would get a
right,
response. I think
right,
the charge is that the clearinghouse needs to set up some standard for that.
exactly, exactly. So, like I say, it's more to come on that. Hopefully it will be soon. But like I said, most of the stuff that I've seen, it's been where usually the education, the part two, social media or the web-based stuff meets that platform, but it's hard right now to give you credit for that for interaction parts, which is the first element. Good, good, good.
I
All
don't
right. Any
see
other
any other questions in the chat. Anybody last call, or else we can end a little early and give you guys back some time today. I don't see anything. So thank you very much, Kenya, again.
uh
And I'm just trying to
and
look here. Our next workshop. Let me
I
see
think
here.
I've
What's
got what, the
on?
22nd? Is that
Sounds
right?
that sounds right.
Yep, next week.
Yep. So, and that
And
one is going to be on which standards?
that is going to be 8 and 9. So I will warn you right now, we probably will not finish early. We may, or we probably.
Yeah. Yep. So standards
And
8 and 9, January 22nd, will be our next meeting. And
yes,
really appreciate everybody's attendance and participation today.
thank you all. And like I said, come with questions for next week. So I know there are a couple of y'all actually working on Standard 9. So come with questions and so we can get you help on those.
Yeah, I know in Virginia, we have some that are doing the independent study and some that are going to be using, the inspection data. So that'll be good to have people doing both to kind of
Yes,
talk about. So,
yes.
all
So
right. Thank you
good, good.
guys.
All right. Thank you all. Enjoy the
All
rest
right.
of your day.